Black Desert Online, a fantasy sandbox mmorpg released to players back in 2014, and since then has earned itself a still thriving player base, with hundreds of thousands still actively populating its lands, battling to stake a claim on its keeps and castles, as well as getting involved in the game's content updates and additions since its release. And today, my friends, we take a deep dive into what the game has to offer its players today, exploring its world, meeting its inhabitants both stunning and disturbing, taking on its challenges, and obtaining some of its hard-earned gear. As we take a look into the mind-blowing world of Black Desert Online. Before diving in, I want to give a big thank you to the sponsor of today's video, NordVPN. As an IT infrastructure engineer for over a decade before diving into the wonderful world of content creation, I know the dangers of not protecting yourself online, and with NordVPN it has never been easier. So you can return back with peace of mind that salty, toxic player you just crushed does not stand a chance at ruining your experience, no matter how hard his brother's mate who watched half a season of Mr. Robot tries. With a single click, NordVPN will encrypt your data and protect your connection online. Not just that, but also allows you to access content from your favorite streaming services only shown in certain countries. NordVPN now even also offers threat protection to keep you protected from malware and harmful sites, along with its password manager to keep your online experience safe and seamless. Use the link in the description for a huge discount and a free gift using my link at nordvpn.com/MitchMannix. And a massive thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring this video and helping me keep the content coming. And now, we have a date with the desert. As always, our journey begins at the character creator, with Black Desert Online's character customization suite being incredibly deep and featuring a truly staggering amount of options to craft your chosen hero. Going very much for if you can see it, you can tweak it approach, in addition to the ability to sample other players' creations and use them if desired, and even featuring an area where you can pose your goddess or monstrosity in all manner of positions to make sure they're just right. On the outside of the box into monstrosity! Oh, what a goal! And what a disturbing celebration! Black Desert features a huge range on offer when choosing a class for the game, with at the time of recording 26 on display, although with most of them seemingly not given directions on where the camera will be placed during the character selection, with each class also having additional class options later down the leveling journey, with their awakening and succession unlocks that we'll cover a little later in the video. But of course, we need a hero for this journey, and must call upon the aid of the most powerful of wizards, Fumbledore. A powerful and feared magic user, the former being mostly due to his reputation of being slightly less than accurate with his spells for unknown reasons. The game opens up with a beautifully stylized and cinematic feeling opening segment, introducing the game's combat and movement fundamentals. BDO, rather than relying on the typical hotbar focused control system for its attacks, chooses to encourage its use of predefined key combos to unleash destruction with your chosen class for the majority of the game's skills. This and the game's pace in encounters early on giving its combat a hugely satisfying feeling, whilst also being a little overwhelming with so many skills and button combinations to learn right off the bat. After completing the opening section, we are dropped into the game's world to begin the leveling journey, and are greeted with an eye-watering amount of information making up the game's UI. Being fully customizable, and while a little much at the beginning, I can say becomes far less cumbersome now after far longer with the game. We quickly set to task, making our way through the early levels and the opening questline, with Black Desert now sporting a fully voiced and also multiple branching opening questline, which works really well at placing the player in the game's world, along with introducing us to a number of initial characters.
We're finding the source of all this chaos. The very leader of the imps himself, Red Nose.
Red Nose, eh? Something strikes me that this chap may be the one to ask. Taking Fumble to a number of locations, giving him a chance to hone his skills, and setting the stage for the later questing, all culminating in a boss fight that really highlighted just how enjoyable BDO's combat style can be, when tasked with taking down tougher opponents, before landing ourselves in the game's next settlement of Velia, making sure to stop off and grab some supplies.
What? No way. Look at those dreamy eyes.
Oh, just dreamy. While Fumble's eyeballs may be a little off-putting, what's clear early on with BDO is the absolutely mind-blowing visuals of the MMO, the game's remastered version dropping back in 2018, and still today sports some of the most incredible-looking graphics of any MMORPG. This coupled with the game's day-night cycle, NPCs going about their business, and some beautifully done weather effects, makes for a hugely immersive experience, something that BDO does far better than I feel it gets credit for, as we'll see a little later in the video.
Some see these wrinkles as a sign of wisdom.
If that was the case, mate, that would make Gordon Ramsay the Dalai Lama. Working our way through the levels, Fumble is not alone in his quest for greatness, with BDO providing a dark spirit companion for assisting in the player's journey, which actually changes forms during the game's plotline, away from its haunted, fart-looking beginnings. The spirit being a source to pick up quests as well as later down the line for upgrading gear, and was far less anger-inducing for me at least than some RPG companion systems, and is summonable anywhere in the game's world. Not just that, but without spoiling anything, actually being a character that leans away from the wide-eyed, goofy-looking Disney rejects from other titles. Yes, I'm looking at you, Mayfor. Actually being something you aren't quite sure whether is friend or foe. The spirit cannot be seen by other NPCs, however I'm sure they would struggle to notice regardless, with Fumble's habit of standing on tables and levitating in the air during social interactions. Okay. Picking up the final starter quest in the line, Fumble makes his way to Castle Kron, and after battling his way past the crappiest guards in history...
What the hell? Did some idiot touch the spire door again?
Have the vengeful souls returned?
Roll
ending in locking swords with another epic boss battle showdown that reminded me in feel and aesthetic more of an encounter with one of the Souls series than something I would typically associate with MMOs. Good lord, look at the power of that goblin. He must have been one of those that dropped a like on the video and let me know his thoughts down in the comments, really helping to support the channel. I better get away, as who knows what power he will wield if he finds the subscribe button. With the introductory questline behind us, it was time to venture out into the game's open world, following the main plotline which is split into chapters taking place in key areas of the game, adopting a format of meeting a whole range of characters and learning more about the area, taking off a few combat quests and then taking down a mini-boss, and wandering off triumphantly, sometimes making a whole host of celebratory silly noises. This questing style, while not the most gripping, did get a huge boost in enjoyability due to having such a tall task of learning all the game's combos and skill inputs, turning kill quests which would normally feel like filler content into an opportunity to hone Fumble's skills with some great feeling beatdowns. After progressing to well into the Valencia questline, I did yearn for a few more opportunities for combat, over travelling from NPC to seemingly disturbingly overcaffeinated NPC, but that may be due to just how enjoyable the combat is in the heat of battle with one of the game's tougher mini-bosses. During the leveling journey, occasionally some alternative quests are thrown in to mix things up, and to introduce some of the game's additional mechanics, such as Fumble getting far too excited cooking up his first and most likely disgusting meal. And getting transported down a well to a gold-plated sci-fi inspired instance for some interesting questing, featuring some more of the game's fantastic soundtrack, this time taking a different turn. After exploring and questing across the land, upgrading Fumble's gear, and taking out a huge range of mini-bosses, with some being quite the challenge. Are you good, Fumble? You're on fire a little bit. Our bungling hero made it to level 56, and with it a chance to unlock his class's Awakening and Succession skills, with the Succession being more centered around how the class has played up until this point, and the Awakening granting the player with a range of skills that shifts the class's playstyle a tad to mix things up. I still had a long way to go before I would be anything close to mastering my main abilities, but it was nice to see just how much variety there was within the game's classes. Something, however, with so many I feel would inevitably be quite the challenge to balance in Fumble's next stop, taking a look at what I could in the game's PvP. Black Desert chooses to favour its player versus player experiences over flushing out the game with dungeons and raids, sending a fair amount of its competition, with open world PvP, team-based game modes, and of course the faction warfare, of player-driven guilds fighting over claim of the game's towns and nodes, even featuring the player guild's crests on guards and placements within the captured settlements, leading to me keeping on my toes no matter how seemingly friendly they may seem. PvP, with some exceptions, will rely on the player having a competitive gear score, as well as skill with their chosen class, something that Fumble did not have either of, but the show must go on with such a keystone of this MMO, so jumped first into an instance team-based mode, and got his ass handed to him so fast and brutally that other people's asses around the land began getting pulled into the gravitational force of his sucking. With his bad reputation truly in tatters, we visited next one of the game's open arenas for challenging others to hone our skills, and got to see and practice a bit of the game's PvP, PvP. A high skill and gear ceiling await those that look to succeed in this MMO, and there's a lot of content available at the later levels for those that seek it out, but it would have been nice to see a mode or two available before reaching the top in terms of potential opponents when working through the game, as the PvP being so satisfying feeling, it's a shame as I'm sure will go overlooked by some who see the road to becoming a force to be reckoned with a far too daunting task, being thrown in with max gear score veteran players from the get-go, taking so long before getting anywhere near to an even playing field. Well, quite. And for those worried about the open world PvP, in my time after getting flagged for it at level 50, did not experience a lot of players looking to kill me on sight, outside of the PvP listed servers, with most being far more concerned with whatever activity they were involved in. And looking into the karma system that punishes players who do, I can see inhabiting this open world being far less of a gank fest than say games like Mortal Online 2. Fumble, after such an epic beatdown, looked to next get involved in the world's professions to reflect on his journey, and maybe even earn a buck or two. So grabbing his hoe and an arrangement of crafting and gathering tools, headed out into the world, fishing, logging, creating, and trying his hand at a number of the game's life skills. What we found was that along with the game's visuals, Black Desert's depth within its life skills is another one of its truly mind-blowing experiences, and for this alone should be on the radar for all those that love to get deep into professions in MMOs. Property can be purchased in towns and workers hired to be set about their own customizable jobs. Player housing and workshops can be built for creation of trade goods as well as items for the player. Fumble even built a shipyard and used it to set sail across the game's huge ocean expanse to further explore for more opportunities to get his butt kicked. Safe to say that the life skills in BDO is one of its strongest features along with its PvP offerings, and coupled with the land's drop-dead gorgeous visuals, made the whole experience incredibly immersive. The player's mount will even fill up with baggage as the inventory is filled. Truly an area that can be an experience to really lose yourself in, and is so strong that I imagine that a fair amount of the player base log in for the life skills alone without the desire for the combat open world experiences. Well then. After reaching level 58, taking on some of the game's epic world bosses, getting stuck in with the life skills, and getting stomped in the game's PvP, there were definitely some elements that I feel will work against the enjoyment of some potential players with Black Desert. Like with most Korean MMOs, the upgrade system is chance-based, and with that the inevitability that effort alone will not dictate your success in gearing up, unless of course you spend some real-world cash to tip the scales, and also leading to now and again the game taking time away from you. What I mean by this is that when you fail an upgrade on a piece of armor of a certain level, it will fail, but also downgrade the item, and with accessories, flat out destroy it. This of course, as with games like Lost Ark, will bother some more than others, and there are items you can obtain to boost your character's chances. But for me personally, the idea of grinding for something for hours just to end up further back than when I started just feels too infuriating with such a disrespect for the player's time. In addition to this, despite the game being buy to play, it does feature a massive amount of monetization, unfortunately including some pay to win elements that will most likely impact competitive and grinding players over those that make life skills and more casual activities a focus. That and a whole host of epic and raunchy looking cosmetic options for your hero. I'm so glad they changed the character model for that. BDO, although featuring some really cool world boss encounters, does not cater for those looking for a PvE experience as deep and feature-rich as found in a lot of its competitors. I imagine like the early release of New World due to its more PvP-oriented focus, with no raids or dungeons aside from a very recent dungeon-esque single instance. So for those not a fan of the PvP or life skills, looking to have the game massively open up during the endgame, will be left with not a lot of new content to get involved in to lengthen out the combat experience. After an incredibly enjoyable dive into this MMORPG, the question remains, should you play BDO in 2023? Well, that more strongly than most occasions will come down to what kind of MMO player you are, and what you're looking to get out of your time. If you're a fan of theme park MMOs such as Final Fantasy XIV or World of Warcraft, and see BDO as another land of similar opportunities with some great looking combat and visuals, I imagine Black Desert Online will ultimately disappoint you. There is simply not enough incentive and PvE systems within the endgame to make the experience something that competes with its theme park competitors, even if the combat is incredibly enjoyable and tracking down world bosses and exploring feels great. If chance-based upgrade systems or having monetization that will give the upper hand to those with deep pockets spoils your blood, then again BDO will most likely do more to infuriate you than entertain you in the end. However, if you're someone who's looking to really test themselves within a whole host of breakneck, highly satisfying PvP challenges, and don't mind tussling with the upgrade system or spending some cash to get there, to make a name for yourself or conquer the lands together with a guild, then BDO could be well worth picking up. Or for those that want to truly lose themselves in a beautiful world, working away at building up a crafting, gathering or trading empire, either small scale or stretching across the entire land, then Black Desert is a title that simply cannot be overlooked. The game's weather, inhabitants, and even the mount system just piles on immersion, and strikes me as a great place for those that just want to break from reality and to unwind. Kinda mind-blowing that BDO manages to nail two core MMORPG elements so incredibly far from each other: breakneck-paced epic PvP warfare and super chilled crafting and gathering management, or even just exploring the land and playing through the game's stories. And for fans of any of those, this MMO is far from just a pretty face. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I'm keen to get your thoughts down in the comments, and please drop the video a like if you enjoyed it, as it really helps the channel, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an upload. I'd like to give a massive shout out to the channel members. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. If you're interested in becoming a channel member for all sorts of perks including exclusive videos, the info including a link to our Discord server which is available for everyone is down in the description. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Jesus, calm down!
Oh dear lord, what have I done?